Alright, this should be a quick one, I think. Death Battle is open 2026 with Ichigo vs Yusuke, a matchup where I have almost no strong connection. I have read one chapter of Bleach and I didn't really like it, and I watched a couple episodes of YuYu Hakusho and I really enjoyed it, but never got around to finishing it off or even really continuing it before I just kind of forgot to go any further. So I really have no strong connection to these characters, and I was mostly just looking to see how interested these analysis segments got me. And you know what? They're both pretty damn good, actually. But first, what about an ad read? He's a G Fuel drinker.
Your voice G Fuel.
No doubt about it! Spirit Gun!
G Fuel cigar? Turn show!
No match!
You idiot! Don't you know this video is sponsored by G Fuel?
Video?
Listen here, buddy. G Fuel's your all-in-one plant-based energy formula. It contains 0 carbs, calories, or sugars. But it's got plenty of antioxidants.
How about nuts?
What? I mean, no, but...
That's it! Jeez, crybaby much?
It's available in over 50 flavors in tubs or cans. Most G Fuel contains caffeine, making it unsuitable for kids under the age of 18.
Well, I am 18 at the end of the series, so...
Now, you still need to drink it responsibly.
Responsibly?
You need to be responsible, son. Get a real job and work in an office.
Screw that! I don't need responsibility! Ugh! What a douchebag! G Fuel time?
Yeah, sod it, sure. What the? This is the power of G Fuel! I just head to the link in the description and use code BLOODRIGHT for 20% off this order. Just like you're only 20% of a real person!
What the ah!
I should buy some G Fuel. That is the entire point of the bit, yeah.
Ad read over. Ichigo's felt way better than his first episode. Not just in the scaling not all being saved for the conclusion, but also in actually selling the character. I really liked the coverage of his arc, and actually putting weight on everything after the Mugets. That was all really cool, and I think it helped Ichigo feel way more like a character than he did prior. And Yusuke's analysis was also just genuinely fucking good. I mentioned in my reaction that I had a bit more experience with him, and that really helped here, because I had a degree of connection to Yusuke. I got really attached to learning about where his story went from the start that I had experienced. And I also felt like his analysis had the more interesting editing and some cooler general visuals. I don't think his analysis had as interesting an arc to cover. Like, I was really into the whole exploration of Ichigo losing his powers and realizing only then how important it was. In fact, the way they kind of gloss over a lot of the story throughout most of it almost helps sell that. Like, it makes us as viewers less appreciative of the story relevance of those powers, and when suddenly that whole thing comes to the forefront, we kind of get the same sort of vibe as Ichigo realizing how important they were to his story, or at least the closest you could get through a versus analysis in this sense. Which just makes it feel all the better when you hear about how Ichigo overcame it, defeating impossible odds and saving the day. I do think the true Bankai weird sword bullshit made it inevitably a bit difficult to really write all that interesting a finale to the analysis. Like, how interesting can you really write an ending that is, so then his sword broke, but turns out he had another sword inside of it and so he just kinda won. With Yusuke though, I feel like something about it just worked more for me. Aside from the I'm not American so I didn't find that funny Kamehameha joke, most of the gags in Yusuke's really did it for me. I like how Boomstick drops any cadence to his voice when talking about the sussy spirit gun, and how casually he drops stuff like finger blasting without the script really dwelling on it. One thing in general for both sides, I really liked how it felt like the analyses were just covering everything. Like, I don't feel like many analyses really cover the stories in this way, where it mentions most of the important villains, or at least the ones I'm aware of, and how the power escalated and escalated with time. I will mention something to this effect in my upcoming 2025 Death Battle episodes ranking, but there are characters where the power scaling does directly tie into their stories and narratives, and this pair of analyses really do get that point across. The feats and scaling aren't just there because it's a versus analysis, it's there because they're just a part of the story behind YuYu Hakusho and Bleach. As the narrative progresses, new villains appear with bigger and more powerful feats, and the power creep isn't necessarily a bad thing, as they work in how these more powerful villains gradually push the heroes, brought them to lose themselves in some way, forced them to break their limits and eventually reach walls so high up that they could only get over them by overcoming their greatest hang-ups as individuals. And also Yusuke has a wonderful ending where he loses but it doesn't matter because he found himself anyway. I also want to shout out this one part of Ichigo's analysis that feels like a direct rebuttal of Wiz's own rebuttal of the feat they're talking about in Naruto vs Ichigo. Like, it's literally just Wiz taking a single sentence out to go, oh, and by the way, I was wrong and dumb.
Well, I don't make mistakes.
So with such great analyses, feels almost unfortunate that they kind of overshadow the fight for me, because the fight is actually really quite good. Again, not someone who was really into either series properly, but as an outsider, I thought this was really fucking sick and had a lot of great moments. For one thing, it's nice to have an Ichigo episode where the screen isn't saturated to shit and back. Look at this, you can see what's happening without it looking so aggressively orange. Speaking of, this episode immediately gets points to me because while it has several references to previous episodes, it also makes sure to pack in plenty of its own original dialogue, and as a result, I don't mind the handful of small references in there. You got Yusuke quoting Sasuke's no match from Sasuke vs Hiei, Ichigo repeating his "is that the best you can do" line, and of course the death parroting Ichigo's own "gimme a frickin' break." Not to mention the start of the fight being the second time Ichigo has basically just seen a dude inside of another dude and gone, "Up, must be a hollow." Which is a pretty fitting way to start it with Yusuke, which he does the same thing back to him. It's really quite simple, but it's a natural way to get the fight going. I've had issues in the past with Death Battle's inability to capture certain things, such as scrappy fighters like Buffy not really feeling very scrappy, tactical fighters like Grey not really having any tactics, and creative characters like Giorno not really doing anything that creative. Rarely will they get more than one maybe moment of doing that stuff, and the rest is kind of just blind swinging or using a specific power they did one time ever over and over. Sasuke vs Hiei relevantly to this, despite having a big emphasis on them being martial artists and swordsmen, was almost all big moves being shouted out and dropped back to back with no real choreography or sword fighting past the first few seconds. In this episode though, Yusuke actually gets several moments to show off his creativity. He uses his spirit gun to propel himself into Ichigo, he bounces a blast off of Ichigo's own sword into his back, and he copies Ichigo's own move with his spirit gun in a two-handed blast that I think is one of the most moments DB has had in a while. Now 3 of these might not sound like much, but considering after the first minute Yusuke gets grabbed by a big monster, and then moments later goes into a form that Death Battle portrays as all raw pugilism, it seems very fitting to me. In the moment where he is being his creative normal self, he does creative stuff. His street brawler energy is also there. I mean, he shoots Ichigo in the nuts after all, and that's quite amusing. Even if there's kind of a bit too long a build up and Ichigo doesn't even try to counter. I also really like the bit of Ichigo being forced to throw hands without his swords and Yusuke clearly just finessing him. The second half of the fight isn't nearly as well choreographed, but it's carried by how fun the character writing is. Once the two enter their final forms in the demon world, the action becomes all big swings, but it fits so well because of what's going on. I love Ichigo taunting Yusuke for being a slow-ass punk, and Yusuke just kind of throws it back at him and gets really into the fight. He doesn't give a shit that Ichigo is faster, the only thing he cares about is that Ichigo implied that he was still holding back. Yusuke's "I'll kill you even if it kills me" has to be one of the best lines of the episode, not only because the line itself is great, but Nick Landis' delivery is so good. He really sounds like he's getting into the fight and screaming from the heart for Ichigo not to be a little bitch baby. And Ichigo's taunt nearly fully backfires, as Yusuke's impassioned scream almost convinces him to drop straight into Final Getsu Getensho. But as fits how they described Ichigo's arc, instead of doing that and throwing away his powers again, he goes into a different finishing move. They make the tree explosion that's ever so infamous from Sasuke vs Hiei. I know it's from the YuYu anime, but to me, this tree explosion is from Sasuke vs Hiei. Ichigo pushes through, his sword breaks, but it reveals the sword inside, then that kills Yusuke in a final swing. I will say, I don't feel like the final clash has the impact it needs. It does veer a little into, oh, it's over I guess territory, and I have seen other people a lot more disappointed by it than me, who really just felt, I guess that's it. And I think a big part of that is the actual sound effect of the final slash having very little impact, and the actual tree split also not having the biggest impact. The music also continues on a little bit too long, so it does almost evoke the energy of your classic badly done death battle fake out. It's like they kind of faked you out into thinking it was a fake out just by having the music go on too long like Death Battle's normal bad fake outs do. I do quite like Yusuke's reaction of essentially just fuck, and Ichigo's little response to that is quite fun too. But it's not lost to me that it's definitely a bit weird in portrayal. Speaking of things that look weird, actually I don't mind the close-ups. Some can look really low quality, particularly on Ichigo's side where it looks like a badly pixelized 3D model. But Yusuke especially in the second half tends to be fine. In fact, it looks like a completely different style altogether in that second half, and also many times his head's really small. I think my only issue with them is that the first few Ichigo close-up have what feels like a lot of messy stray pixels. It feels like it's not simplified enough to be clean, but not detailed enough to be detailed. That said, I don't think Yusuke's mouth is actually moving in this one. Like, it's open in some frames, but that's like he's screaming. It does not look like he's speaking. Most of the fight is just really cool. The action at the start is creative as mentioned, and the action at the end is high impact as mentioned. I also love your classic falling from the sky action. Oh, and the transformations were cool. I can't comment on how accurate Ryzen and White's portrayals were, or I guess Yusuke and Ichigo's portrayals, to be honest. In particular though, I really like that White's voice sounds straight out of an early 2000s dub. In fact, the way he's written, with that like, rude awakening, he's a real piece of work, and the way it's like voiced, it just evokes that early 2000s English anime dub. It's the kind of voice you hear all the time in that era. It's written straight out of that era. I love that. It feels like it evokes that perfectly, which like I don't even think they necessarily did for like Yugi in the last death battle, who is also famously from that era. Like this is great. And the contrast of Yusuke rejecting his own thing to fight on his own terms while Ichigo accepts who he is and fights beside White is really cool. But there is one part of the fight I don't really get, and you've seen my reaction, you probably know what that is. A random holo just shows up, grabs Yusuke, immediately dies, and then Ichigo gets mad at Yusuke over it and tackles him through a random portal. From what I've been told by Don, the portal thing makes sense to me, and the holo in general, it does make sense to appear even if it's kinda naff, though I do recognize it from Ichigo's analysis. But why is Ichigo being such a pissy bitch? I've heard a few explanations, most of them don't make sense to me. Like, Ichigo seems to get mad at Yusuke for protecting himself. Like, I initially assumed it was because Yusuke was using demon power, maybe, but that's contradicted, like, in a funny little exchange they have a moment later. Apparently, it could be because of the damage Yusuke caused the environment. That's probably what it is, but I'll be honest, I did not notice the damage until I was told and actively looked for it. Nobody I talked to even seemed to notice this either. It's so barely noticeable because it doesn't have much impact at all. And it's not really fair on Yusuke to get blamed. Like, what was he supposed to just let himself die? Was he not supposed to use a big attack that could actually kill the thing attacking him? Ichigo kind of comes off as a bit of a douchebag here, getting mad at Yusuke for self-defense. In fact, isn't he under the impression that Yusuke himself is a holo right now? It feels like kind of awkward moment in an otherwise great fight. And I do like how it leads into this realm between realms in Bleach that Yusuke like punches them out of and into the demon world from YuYu Hakusho. That's really cool, and honestly taking the fight between worlds in both universes, featuring some inner dialogues and having way more back and forth banter than it feels like the average episode has, makes this feel like an actual one-shot crossover manga in animated form. The actual banter is top-notch and really characterful, and the episode gets a lot of life from it. It's a really, really fun fight, and I think feeling like a crossover is one of the things I always want from Death Battle. It's helped by Nick Landis' great performance as Yusuke, and Adam Park's excellent JYB impression as Ichigo. The track Soul Outsider is also very solid. Everyone has said it just sounds like an anime opening, and it does, it's quite good. And after I spent the whole of last year saying the conclusions were just not great in 2025, this one's great. Again, not a fan of either, and I have no intention of claiming or investment in seeing them getting the correct stats. But this, to me, dodges the issues I had with last year. There's no weird pity category that exists just to give the loser an advantage, like, say, if they had a ranged combat sort of category just to give Yusuke a W. There's no weirdly worded category that vibes poorly, like if they had, I don't know, ranged combat and it, like something like that. There's no badly explained shit, like if they had ranged combat and said that Yusuke's got more options, so his ranged combat is better, while then ignoring that Ichigo's ranged combat would be way stronger based on the next category, so he should take ranged combat, because they very simply and concisely go over the 4 category, I guess they're chapters here in this one. Okay, wizard. But like, yeah, abilities were solid, makes sense, speed was solid and makes sense, and tactics being where they even out seemed fair enough to me. The final one of strength made sense to save to the end and was very well elaborated on. You gotta love how the tree punch is 66 times weaker than the Sasuke vs EA version. And given this feat is not the biggest one Yusuke gets, because they immediately kind of gloss over the big ass tree and go into the scaling of like destroying 2 whole worlds and then 10 times multiplier on top of that, it feels like an implicit acknowledgement of how stupidly highballed the feat was in Sasuke vs Hiei, and honestly, a stealthy version of that earlier thing I mentioned where Wiz argues against his own previous claims, but this time Wiz is arguing against his own previous claims for YuYu Hakusho instead. I just appreciate how straightforward this was. It's like they realized, finally, that a character getting stomped isn't inherently disrespectful to the character, and doesn't need to be pussyfooted around, or that deliberately downplaying the winner or making random categories for the loser to win feels like it's just giving pity on the loser for being on loser. It's just a direct and open, Ichigo's badass, Yusuke's badass, but Ichigo wins. End of story. Also, is that a full screen next time trailer I spy? Nice to see a return of those. I don't think I ever understood the community's fascination with making half the screen dead and empty space for so many years. So what is my conclusion, and what have we learned? My conclusion is, the episode is really great, and we have learned that the episode is really great. It's nice to see Bleach getting an episode that feels like it cares more about Bleach, and I feel like it's a good reprise for YuYu as well. Naruto vs Ichigo is one that barely gives either character much of a look at generally, and is hard to look at times too, and most of the big moments are Naruto, and Madara vs Aizen is a very Madara heavy episode. That did appeal to me at the time as a Madara fan who didn't know and still doesn't know shit about Aizen, but I haven't gone back to watch the episode in a long time, and given that my current standards want the episodes to feel like a good balance for both characters, even if I don't really care about one, like, it's definitely not how Death Battle should be making their episodes. But there are times where, like, it's hard to deny, I'm not going to care as much, and I'm still going to likely enjoy the episode for being very Madara heavy, but it's one where I feel like if I watched or read Bleach, probably read Bleach, and got to know Aizen, I'd probably be a little let down by how little Aizen there is, because it's hard to deny, even watching the episode, without knowing anything about Aizen, the biggest moments are all Madara. Meanwhile, YuYu Hakusho's previous episode was a badly written and poorly put together piece of nothing, with some of the worst written arguments they've ever put together, just on their own merits, and featuring a very, I have depicted Hiei as the Chad and Sasuke as the Wojak vibe to it. Not to mention the really good animation is wasted on a very bad script, and frankly, as good as the animation is, it's all just really well-drawn PNGs that sometimes move a little bit, and then the actual character's doing nothing. Yusuke vs Ichigo though, this is a work of passion for each character. It's the exact amount of story and versus debating melding that I want in my death battle analysis for both combatants, a very solid fight that feels like a crossover, and it has several great character moments, as well as highlights of what makes the two characters similar yet distinct, and finally, a well-explained conclusion that goes into solid detail. Maybe not as much as Naruto vs Ichigo, which I do think has the more entertaining conclusion, even if it's certainly not nearly as accurate, but definitely this has a way better conclusion than Madara vs Aizen's. Anyway, only Madara can kill Aizen and not vice versa, so nothing else we said mattered, and Sasuke vs Hiei's everything wrong as a conclusion. And like, to be clear, I'm not even saying that I think Hiei should have lost. I mean, I think he should have lost, but that's not important. All I'm saying is that their arguments are so bad in every conceivable way in that episode. So yeah, I really liked Yusuke vs Ichigo. And all I can say is that this was a real Squidward approved episode. And you know, what more could you want than that? I mean, he would see this and he would say, I'm speedy! Though, can we not get so many returners this year as well? We've already got 3 confirmed returners for the year, and that's nearing the limit of what I'm willing to just put up with for the year. Last year's episodes were very good. We got so many fucking returners though. Though, I mean, I don't know what to say, so I think we can move on to the end card now. Alright, well, that was the review. We start off the year with a pretty good episode, and you know, what else could we ask for? Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. I think it's really funny that before the episode dropped, you'll see down there, I drew, Muget's Ichigo Final Getsuke Tensho, which is the one he actively rejects using in the death battle. That was an inspired choice from me. I was gonna do, True Bankai, but I decided to do this instead. Whoops. Yeah, so tell me what you thought below about the episode, whether you enjoyed it, whether you didn't. Yeah, tell me how you hate the fact that they scaled them wrong, because they said realms, but they didn't specify universes or something. I don't know. Yeah, just tell me what you think below. Now, I hope you enjoyed the review. Thank you to everyone scrolling by for being a supporter. You are all legends, and, Noah Green should be added here, which is funny given the next time. But yeah, so I mean, what else is there to say? I had a good time with the episode. Yeah, the ranking for every episode from last year will be coming out this month. First, I will have my second half, my 2025 new media ranking, which was supposed to come out in January, but I just didn't get around to finishing off all the stuff for the YouTube release, which is just one of these end cards, which I'm actually going to be doing. Well, I think I've already done it. I've already done it at this point as recording this. I just haven't got around to rendering it because it's fucking 5 hours long or so. Yeah, after that, you will be getting the ranking of every episode from last year, and then, you know, we'll see where we go from there. Probably the worst scenes of every episode from 2024 to 2025. Something which is gonna be, I've tried to think about what's gonna be on the list. It's tough. The episodes are all the episodes are generally so good that it's hard to think of a particularly bad moment, or the bad one where there's so many options that I just don't know which one really exemplifies all my issues. But we'll see on that one. Yeah, and yeah, I'm banging through a bunch of film rankings and film theories. I had a several month break on film theory because I got so mad. Came back last night before bed, watched 2 episodes, and was so enraged by what I watched that I was kept up for 47 minutes in just like a blind anger before I was ready to try to sleep. Film theory is something. It sure is a something. I'll tell you that much. But, you know, as usual, if you want to see episode videos like this early, you can join my Patreon with all these lovely people, and you can also make me say stupid stuff on the Patreon-only Discord that you will get access to. So let's see what we got. I'm not putting it all on the line! You better let me win! I didn't even read that before. I don't really read these before I do at all, but I thought I was just, I'm putting it all on the line, you better let me win. Ban Kai! Why the fuck do you wear orange? It's not your color, bro. I'm Naruto. Well, Bleach fans, you really wanted to win, and fortunately, this was it. Okay, let's be fair. The gap between Surfer and Daredevil is a little bigger than the gap between Ichigo and Yusuke. I'm putting it all on the line! All in one! Black again, dealer! You better do the opposite on red! I know Yusuke is technically the better fighter, but Ichigo's like astronomically more powerful, so I'm gonna be taking Yusuke in that fight. Sorry, YuYu fans. I know you all really wanted to win, but unfortunately, Bleach took priority this time. We already cheated Sasuke if you guys get W. Just calm down. What the fuck is this entire exchange? I don't understand, but it is a goated Ollie reference. Hell yeah! I'll debunk you even if it debunks me! I'm putting it all on the assumptions! You better do the same! That is horrific. Yeah, I've already given my thoughts on the franchise. That is, I don't have any. You keep in mind, I do this for every Death Battle review now. Because I want to be as transparent as possible as to where I stand on knowledge of the franchise or characters. I don't want people to go in thinking that I'm an expert or a big fan of certain characters or not. And I don't think I should leave it to you all to figure out what I think of a franchise or characters or how familiar I am based on what I say. Because I think it's more important to just be open, let you know, not a fan of this, am a fan of this, so on and so forth, and then can be open with that. And that was that. Yeah, hopefully this isn't adding another 10 minutes to the video. I hope you all enjoyed. Have a good one, folks, and take care.